Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today's video, we're getting into start-sit wide receivers, heading to week 10 of the fantasy football season. We'll go through each and every matchup individually, analyze the matchup, and have start-sit decisions on every single player in these games at the wide receiver position. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button, and as well, subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're also live every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern on the OwnersBox Twitch, and you'll probably see us on the YouTube as well. If you just go to OwnersBox Sports on Twitch and follow us there, you can check out everything we have in the previews for Sunday, because again, we'll get you the latest injury updates I have here on Friday morning, but anything that changes, we'll definitely have updates for you. Let's get into these matchups. First up, we head to Germany. Colts, Patriots, a game that's really going to test your football fandom if you're going to get up and watch this one. I'll probably have it on. It'll probably be from bed, but Colts defense, we have one that's been pretty, I would say, mediocre in terms of run defense. Not one to be scared of, not one to expect massive performances from your wide receivers. They're 16th in fantasy points allowed, 16th in EPA against the pass, have a pretty mediocre pass rush. So for this Patriots team, it's as good a matchup as they've had this season when it comes to being able to move the ball offensively. As for the Patriots, the pass game has been a little bit an area of where they've struggled the most. They've been a lot better against the run than they have been against the pass. Brought in J.C. Jackson. He's not even making the trip to Germany. As a Chargers fan, it feels really good to have let him go, and he still can't find his game, even with Bill Belichick. So we're definitely an undermanned secondary with the injuries they've dealt with, and then just haven't found a great mix. So they now are 26th in fantasy points allowed, 2 wide receivers, and that coverage grade 55.1 is one of the, I think it's like got to be bottom 5 in the entire league. So definitely something to take advantage of for your wide receivers in this one. So with the Colts, what I'm going to be doing is definitely starting Michael Pittman, coming off a pretty solid game last week, seeing a good target share. Downs target shares and opportunity did come down last week. I am a little bit worried about him moving forward. He's someone that I'm going to more target in some matchups I really, really like. The Patriots, as much as they are one that hasn't been terrific in allowing fantasy points to receivers, they haven't given up a ton of explosive plays this year, and Downs has been hitting a bunch of those. I think he doesn't in this game, so him and Pierce are guys that I do want to sit. On the Patriots side, Demario Douglas, that target share looked really solid from last week. Obviously didn't put together a huge finish. I think he had, 5 receptions for about 55 yards. Nothing too bad, but not quite what you want to see from him, especially last week. Had him as one of my must-start guys. He's someone I'm going back to. Feel really comfortable with him in terms of floor. I think the floor is really high. Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Reagor. We're not going to see Devontae Parker in this game. He did not make the trip. So those are guys I am going to be sitting in this matchup here. Next up is Packers at the Steelers. We got a Steelers defense that's just really struggled when it comes to fantasy points allowed to both the wide receiver and running back position. On the season, they're 28th in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They are a top 10 group when it comes to EPA against the pass. They are a pretty good, obviously a great pass rush with TJ Watt. So on a down-to-down basis, pretty good, but giving up far too many explosive plays. They've given up the 5th most completions of 20-plus air yards this season. So receivers on the outside have absolutely gotten after them. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley early in the season with Amari Cooper. So that's something to pay attention to when you're looking to start your receivers. As for the Packers, team that's more getting crushed when it comes to what they've given up on the ground. 8th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, a good coverage grade. So this isn't a team I'm as down on when it comes to their defense against the pass. Feel pretty good about it, and obviously the Steelers are not one of those more electrifying, explosive offenses as it is. The Packers are giving up, I believe, I talked about this in one of our shorts earlier, or that we posted today. One of the lower completion percentages on those passes of 20-plus air yards in the entire league. So not one to see big plays from, and you don't see a lot from the Steelers. And now with those Packers wide receivers, I love Christian Watson here. 35% of his targets this season have come for 20-plus air yards, so I think he hits at least one big explosive play and potentially multiple, and he has been growing. Even with missing time, he's already, I think he was 8th in the league in end zone targets, so his role in some important areas, deep targets, and end zone targets are growing quite a bit, so I like that. I want to start him. Romeo Doubs, I don't feel as confident in. I think these targets are really starting to spread out. Their backs are starting to be more involved when it comes to running the football. We're seeing higher rushing volume. Last week we saw it against the Rams. I think we'll see it here because the Steelers are pretty poor against the run as well. As for the Steelers receivers, Deontay Johnson is someone I feel great about now moving forward. What he's looked like the last couple of weeks in terms of his share of this offense in the passing game is so good. Pickens has taken a back seat. He has not had much much volume whatsoever. He's been out-targeted the last 2 weeks, 23-10 by Johnson. He's someone I want to sit because, again, the Packers are not giving up explosive plays. So with those limited opportunities, I don't see him being super efficient with them. So that's not enough for me to want to start him. Saints at the Vikings. Josh Dobbs season in Minnesota, full force now, rest of the season. We've got a matchup against the Saints defense that just is really, really good. They're 5th in EPA against the pass, just outside the top 10 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. I think this is a game for the Vikings where the offense will really come back to earth after an explosive performance where they put up 31, right? Yeah, 31 in that game against Atlanta last week. I don't think we see that here whatsoever. I know this is at home for Minnesota, but definitely have some concerns there. And then the Saints side, the Vikings are a team going to send numbers, going to blitz you. And if this pass protection picks up the blitz, Carr can hit some explosive plays. He loves pushing the ball downfield enough as it is. With the Vikings right now, what are they? 22nd in fantasy points allowed. So they're not actually in the bottom 10 as of right now, but definitely a team I'm still targeting and do not believe in when it comes to their pass defense. So what I'm going to be doing here, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are guys I do like because I do think that there's explosive plays that are going to be able to be made in this game. And I also believe that Michael Thomas, the target volume has really come down, and he is not the guy getting those explosive big downfield targets. So I'm leaning more towards sitting him here because I do think the Saints handle business in this game. As for the Vikings, Jordan Addison, I am looking to go to. He had good volume, good opportunities with Dobbs, a quarterback. I can feel a little bit more comfortable than I was with Jaron Hall starting that game. So I am willing to start him, especially when you're looking at no KJ Osborne in this game, TJ Hawkinson banged up. This gives more opportunity for Addison to dominate the target share in a game. Like I said, I do think the Saints will be leading in, so that's a good script here for the pass game. Texans at the Bengals. Game that beginning of the season you wouldn't have thought would be one that was really exciting or competitive, but I think we're going to get that in this one here. The Bengals at home, they got a Texans defense that is actually 2nd in fantasy points allowed this season to wide receivers, if you can't believe it, but they are 23rd in EPA against the pass. PFF really likes them. I've given them a high coverage grade all season, so this is a pretty decent unit defensively, believe it or not, even though they obviously gave up a ton of points to the Bucs last week. On the Bengals side of things, definitely shoring things up defensively, looking better by the week when it comes to what they've done against the pass. Thought they were pretty solid against the Bills there last week as well. So not a huge matchup here for CJ Stroud. I know a lot of you guys are probably asking what to do with Stroud. Can you start him this week against the Bengals? I think he's probably like a tight end 8 to 11 type of option. So I think he's not a bad start, but not one I'm like super high on. But this is a week where, we have no Patrick Mahomes, we have no Jalen Hurts, so you might be in tough. And Stroud is someone I think you can still go to. This team can't run the football. Like, they're going to be giving you a ton of pass volume and a ton of opportunity, and Stroud does a great job of limiting the negative when it comes to protecting the football, not throwing interceptions. So I think he's still a pretty decent start when it comes to the quarterback spot. And now for the Texans, it does look like Nico Collins is not going to be playing. I'm recording this Friday morning. I did see that he did not practice. He went from limited to not practicing on Thursday. That's definitely concerning. That's going to elevate Tank Dell into that top role. And that makes Noah Brown like a potential guy to consider. I have him as a sit because I think you'd need to be in a bit of a deeper league to really consider it, because it is a risky play, because I don't think the Bengals are, a terrible pass defense. The Bucs would be a better spot, obviously, like we saw last week, than what the Bengals would be. So I'm not going to quite go there to start him. And then on the Bengals side of things, T. Higgins is going to be missing this game as well. We're going to have Tyler Boyd elevated to the wide receiver 2 spot. I don't think it's necessary to play him here. I'm not comfortable with the volume. Now, if something happens where Jamar Chase's status is seriously in doubt, then that's a different conversation. But we still have the receivers. We still have our tight ends. We have an Irv Smith that's going to be involved in the pass game. And again, the Texans have been actually pretty good defensively to the wide receiver position, surprisingly. Big battle in the AFC North between the Browns and the Ravens. We've got a Browns team. Both of these teams actually have been elite. What are they? Top 3 in EPA against the pass, both top 4 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. And both have been really good run defenses. It'll be really interesting to see how these teams attack one another. With the Browns, they have not run the ball very efficiently at all as of late. So they could ask a little bit more from Deshaun Watson in his second game back. That is something to keep in mind. And then on the Ravens side offensively, with Keaton Mitchell now, I guess, battling the hamstring injury, which I should have known, I've seen that earlier this season, him dealing with the hamstring injury. I think he'll probably be able to play. But they're running the ball a little bit more effectively. I think the Browns are even better against the pass than they are the run a lot of man coverage, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But first, for the Browns, I am looking to play Amari Cooper in this matchup because, like I said, I think we'll see some decent pass volume from the Browns in this one, and he is definitely way above in the top in terms of top dog. We have Elijah Moore as that second guy, and now Cedric Tillman getting on the field with Donovan Peoples-Jones shipped out of town. I'm not really there with Moore yet, especially in a tough matchup. And then on the Ravens side, I mentioned the man coverage that the Browns play. Zay Jones has been really bad against man. He's 80th in yards per route run, has just like 70 receiving yards and maybe like 8 receptions over the course of the season against man. So I'm really low on him this week. He's someone I want to sit. I know we've seen Odell Beckham Jr., we've seen Rashad Bateman come into bigger roles in this offense as the season has gone on, but you can't forget about Mark Andrews. And in a game where these teams, I think, defensively have some advantages, I'm going to lean towards sitting all my Ravens receivers in this particular game. Titans at the Bucs. If I can take away one big thing for you in this game, it's that you will likely see a lot of throwing the football. Really high passing volume in this game, which is a good sign for all receivers in this one. So for the Titans side of things first, they're a defense that has really been, they haven't been elite against the run, but I respect their run defense, and I think the majority of the league does too. But right now, 24th in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, 24th in EPA against the pass. So this is a good matchup if you want to throw, if you're looking to throw the football, especially with Kevin Byard shipped out of town too. Similar thing for the Bucs, like they're a great run defense. I think everybody knows that for sure, and the numbers indicate that. And now they're second last in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. We saw the big game from CJ Stroud. That really moves this pass defense down quite a bit. That coverage grade's also really poor. So a chance for Will Levis. What I will say is that the Bucs do like to blitz a ton. They're blitzing on 35% of plays, the 4th highest rate in the league. Levis has not been good against the blitz. In the major numbers I look at, he's in the bottom. He's dead last in yards per attempt. He's 4th last in completion percentage. So I'm a little bit worried about him there. So I'm not super high on the Titans offense. But again, passing volume will be the thing here in this game. So for me, that means DeAndre Hopkins will definitely be a start here in terms of that matchup. He definitely is the top option for Will Levis. Kyle Phillips had a pretty good game last week with Burks leaving with a concussion. I don't think Burks is going to play. If you're in a 14-team league, definitely think Phillips is someone to consider, but there's still Chigakonkwo kind of being involved and being on the field a ton. He led the team in routes run last week, so there is some more competition, and when you get into like the second, third receiving option for this team, it's not really that intriguing, but something to consider in your deeper leagues. The Bucs, though, love Evans, love Godwin this week. Again, passing volume I think will be high, and I don't trust this Titans pass defense whatsoever, so I like a decent game here for Baker Mayfield. 49ers at the Jaguars, a game I'm really, really excited about for this week. I think the 49ers are going to need to lean quite a bit on their passing game because the Jaguars have done a terrific job taking away the run against all of their opponents this year. They're giving up just 3.6 yards per carry, one of the best rates in the league. So I think that Brock Purdy is going to be the deciding factor in this game, and you can see it by some of these numbers, 25th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. But like overall as a team, very good coverage group. They've been playing terrifically defensively, both against the pass and the run. But again, pass volume will be high. Their opponents are throwing the ball at the most in the entire league. I think it's close to 40, might be over 40 times per game. So look for volume for these receivers. And I mean, it's kind of similar on the other side for the Niners too. I really trust their run defense and obviously have a great pass rush. Getting Cam Robinson back has been great for the Jaguars. They've actually allowed the 5th lowest pressure rate this season, so can do enough to let Trevor Lawrence kind of cook in this one. 27th in fantasy points allowed to the Niners. Again, it's because they're so good against the run. Teams need to put the ball in the air. This is good for your Jaguars wide receivers if you have any. And now with that being the case, I'm not completely sure if Zay Jones is going to play. He's limited in practice. He's someone I'm going to sit regardless if he plays or not. But Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk are going to be great starts for you here because, again, 49ers, way you're beating them is through the air. I think the Jags can do just that. 49ers, very simple as well. Debo, if he's playing, Brandon Ayuk, regardless, we want to play both of these guys because, again, the Jags are great run defense, and we're going to see Brock Purdy throwing the ball a bunch here, and these guys have a chance to have a pretty solid game too. Falcons at the Cardinals. We've got Kyler Murray back, and that is going to be very exciting to watch when it comes to, how much does this transform this Cardinals team? Could we see them in a lot more shootouts? Like I'm a firm believer that Kyler Murray is a very, very good quarterback in this league. We'll see what he's like in his first game back from ACL surgery, but the Falcons can be had definitely more in the pass game than the run game. Been an excellent run defense, not quite as good against the pass. They're 20th in EPA against the pass. We saw the game that the Vikings had last week with Josh Dobbs, and very obviously pretty much no experience in this offense, so that's going to be something to pay attention to. And then for the Falcons, the Cardinals can be had every which way. 23rd in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, 30th in EPA against the pass. So whether you want to throw it, whether you want to run it, you're going to have success both ways here. The Falcons are a team more looking to run the ball than they are throwing the ball. And if they're leading in this game, that will be the driving force of the offense, I think. And even with that being the case, though, Drake London, if he does play, he logged a full practice on Thursday after some limited work. I think he's going to play. If he does, I think this is still someone you do want to start here. I do think that, of course, when he is back in the fold, he'll continue to be the guy he's been the last number of weeks, which is a good target share, good target volume. And with Taylor Heineke at quarterback, I actually feel even better about London moving forward. On the Cardinals side, with Murray back, I don't really want to take the chance on Michael Wilson just because Murray obviously hasn't had the chance to work with him much. And then Rondale Moore being, needing to get lots of volume to be able to produce because his average up the target is just so low. But Brown played with Kyler Murray at Oklahoma, brought him into the Cardinals last year. I'm comfortable playing him here because, again, I think this team leans on Murray a whole hell of a lot more than they lean on, the run game, which is what they've been doing a lot more lately with the lack of quality quarterback play. Lions at the Chargers. Another great game, I think, on Sunday. I definitely think both of these passing offenses will find success. And both of these teams have actually been pretty good against the run. The Chargers have been great lately against the run. So I think both these quarterbacks will have plenty of passing volume in this one. The Chargers 29th in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Everybody knows they've been one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And then for the Lions, really stout against the run. Still been pretty good by a lot of these metrics when it comes to pass defense, but this is definitely the weaker part of the defense. And the Chargers just can't run the ball whatsoever. So going to see tons of volume here. Now, even with that being the case with the Chargers, Keenan Allen's going to be a start, obviously. I can't quite get there with Quentin Johnston. I like where things are heading. He ran the most routes of any wide receiver, any pass catcher on the team last week. They have made it clear like he's going to be out there on the field. They don't really have any other options, quite frankly. But Herbert even made mention this week of, hey, the more opportunity, the more reps, we're going to get him the football. It could be this week, but I'm not taking the chance on it just with what we've seen so far. But on the Lions side of things, it's a kind of a not similar situation, but just more of a mixed bag beyond Amon-Ra St. Brown. Josh Reynolds is out there a ton. He's just not being targeted whatsoever. Sam Laporta is definitely the number 2 guy in this offense. Khalif Raymond is getting on the field, not doing much with his opportunity. I would love to see Jameson Williams out there more because this is the exact matchup for Jameson Williams to hit a big play because the Chargers, notorious for giving up explosive passing plays. They've been terrible this season, last season, pretty much Brandon Staley's entire tenure. Hopefully they get him on the field more, but I can't take the chance on it because he's just not running enough routes. I wish he was out there more because he would be someone I'd really feel good about starting. If you're in bye week hell and you're a huge underdog in your matchup, you could take the risk, but I wouldn't recommend it. Commanders at the Seahawks. The Seahawks in need of a desperate bounce back after getting their doors kicked in by the Ravens last week. And they got a good chance here for the passing game to get right. 30th in fantasy points allowed are the Commanders, 29th in EPA against the pass. The pass rush will be less of a problem. Man, their pass protection last week was terrible against the Ravens. Here, we got a Commanders team, loses Josh Sweat, loses Chase Young. Should be a little bit of an easier time here for Geno Smith dropping back. So that makes me feel good about the Seahawks, their passing game. And then on the Commanders side, we've seen a ton of passing volume from Howell. He's throwing the ball like one of the highest rates in the entire league. And the Seahawks, I think that after the game against the Ravens, it's hard to say that, but I still do believe that their run defense is better than their pass defense. And to be honest, the Commanders haven't run the ball effectively this year much at all anyways, so we should continue to see that with Bieniemy calling plays too. The question for me, though, is Curtis Samuel going to play? The toe injury, he's been limited in practice. He might get out there. If he does, I would lean more towards sitting Jahan Dotson. But if he doesn't play, I think he can play Dotson and McLaurin pretty comfortably here. Dotson's been on the field a bunch. He's getting some decent target volume. Now he's finally seeing some opportunities in the red zone, which is great for him. So definitely feel great about him if Samuel doesn't play. But if he does, I'm a little more hesitant. The Seahawks side of things, I love Jackson Smith and Jigba's talent, but the problem for me here is just average depth of target wise. He needs more volume than what he's getting to be able to be reliable. Like finding the end zone is something that's very difficult to predict. What I can predict is the type of volume that a player is going to get. And Jigba isn't quite there yet, and his ADOT is like 4 or 5 yards. I'm going to need a ridiculous amount of yards after the catch or a ridiculous amount of volume. And when you're competing with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, it's really tough to be able to do that. And for Metcalf and Lockett, they're both like top 5 in end zone targets. So valuable to be able to find the end zone for both of these guys. So I do feel more comfortable playing them than I do in Jigba. Giants at the Cowboys, the biggest point spread I've seen all season. The Giants are 17.5-point underdogs at the Cowboys. Obviously, this Giants team has struggled across the board. The defense has been brutal. They're 30th in fantasy points allowed, 29th in EPA. It's a great matchup that's correct. That's wrong. That's from the Commanders. 20th in fantasy points, 19th in EPA against the pass. Can be had every which way. What do the Cowboys do here? They beat this team by 40 the last time they played. Who's going to be putting together this production? I have a feeling it'll be a little bit of the defense, a little bit of the running backs. I don't think we'll see a ton of pass volume here from McCarthy's offense. And then the Cowboys, an elite defense, top 6 in fantasy points allowed, 4th in EPA against the pass. Tommy DeVito, the Giants just are a dumpster fire. You're just not watching many Giants games right now. So very easy to be sitting all of these guys, Wandale, Slayton, Hyatt. Don't care. Going to sit them all with DJ gone too. So very much a concern here for this team. Not something I'm going to be touching anytime soon with the pass catchers. On the Cowboys side, it's pretty crowded beyond CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to play CeeDee, but like Gallup, Cooks, we've seen Jalen Tolbert. We're seeing Jake Ferguson really growing in this offense too from a pass catcher perspective. So those two guys, can't trust them, won't play them, especially if they don't really need them in this game. It's time for primetime. The Jets and the Raiders, two teams that were absolutely made for it. Zach Wilson and Antonio Pierce and the Raiders. This game is just horrible. The Jets are a terrific pass defense. They put the Chargers in an absolute blender last week, so I definitely don't think that changes here with Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders passing offense. This is the number 1 defense the Jets are in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. The Raiders defense, it's actually top 5 in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, but they're just getting crushed on the ground. I don't think it's indicative of them being some really high-quality pass defense, but still, I guess, something to keep in mind moving forward. So for the Raiders, in my mind, with the way things have gone with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers as of late, I can't trust any of these guys. I'm not going to start them here. The Jets are, again, just so good against the pass, and I just can't trust O'Connell at quarterback quite yet. As for the Jets, Garrett Wilson will be someone I start here, and I have been every week, and it's definitely been good enough. He's definitely getting it done. The rest of the offense is not anything you're touching as long as Zach Wilson is a QB. Sunday night, Broncos at the Bills. Got a Broncos team coming off a bye. What do they have cooked up for this Josh Allen-led offense? Should be interesting. Both these teams have not been terrible. I guess the Broncos have been terrible against the pass, 32nd in EPA against the pass, but they've also been really bad against the run. So a lot of teams have been moving the ball on the ground as opposed to the air. Doesn't really happen much with the Bills. They're throwing the ball a lot and probably continue to do so in this game. As for the Bills, defensively, I think the expectations are adjusted to just be kind of a middle-of-the-road defense, nothing to be too concerned about just with the way their injuries have piled up this season. And now with the Broncos, they are running the ball a hell of a lot more the last couple of weeks. What I trust is that Courtland Sutton, when this team gets into the red zone, is that go-to guy. The volume it's not terrific for this team, so I'm not really there with Jerry Jeudy as it currently stands. Volume needs to be higher, especially as a guy that doesn't really dominate those important opportunities when it comes to the end zone. And then for the Bills, Stephon Diggs, obviously a start here. We talked about Dalton Kincaid in our must-start short. I love him this week. Gabe Davis has seen his opportunities being taken away from kind of the breakout of Kincaid, and then also we're seeing Khalil Shakur on the field a little bit, and he's been definitely a target for Allen. And then again, plus matchup for the running game. So Davis is someone I do want to sit in this matchup. I just don't see enough here in this one for him to be able to be a viable risk-averse start. He's definitely, I think in my mind, a pretty risky start for you this week. Okay, that's every single matchup for week 10 of the fantasy football season, helping you set your lineups at the wide receiver position. Guys, if you have any questions about these players, you're comparing players, it's hard for me to come up with imaginary scenarios of who would you start? So drop those in the comments. I'll definitely get to them down below. And again, we'll be live Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time on the OwnersBox Sports Twitch and here on the YouTube previewing the Week 10 Sunday slate with any updated info you guys might need. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.